There was probably pun intended coming to the Finnish, a Finn. Yeah, okay. Let's do a small, very small exercise in the beginning. You need to use your volleyball bats. By the show of hands, how many is enjoyed today? 110%, yes. Awesome. My short takes maybe. I think Jan, we are more or less talking about the same stuff, and then please do join us into the orange discussion afterwards as well. There's some priority differences maybe, and I think even though we are both talking about quality engineering, I'm going to touch a bit different topics than you are, so I think we are aligned quite well here. It's very interesting to hear from Christoph and Jakub about their DevOps journey. It's always fun to see what people are doing on their context and their problems. A lot of familiar tooling there. I need to apologize to the cameraman. I'm going to be running around today, so please try to catch up. From Alex's presentation, I especially like the learning part, like set goals for yourself, build a vision and start building small steps towards it. It rings very well on my topic as well. The live panel discussion, it could be a summary of my presentation to become a bit differently opinionated, as well as I'm going to touch a bit different topics. There were a couple things that I think were not mentioned yet today. So hopefully you'll get a bit more thoughts or insight from my experiences. And then I think Linda's brain management stuff is something that if you start moving towards quality engineering, I'm betting that you're going to get quite a lot of pushback. You're going to feel a lot of negative feelings around that. So I think it's good to be able to manage those feelings. So getting away with some learnings out of that presentation is going to be very useful. Shortly about myself. Mikko from Finland. The picture there on the right top hand corner, I think is a fun nuance, or maybe tells something about the Finnish culture, how flat hierarchy we are. I was visiting my brother in Ruka this year during the summertime. It's like 700 kilometers from Helsinki, the capital, which is the southwest part of Finland, midway. You could call it Lapland. We were sitting having a pizza with my and his family, and we saw 3 black vans driving into the pizza place, and I started laughing that looks like a presidential convoy. 2 minutes later, President of Finland was sitting on the next table, eating his pizza. That's my shoulder right there. So you can identify. I actually have that shirt with me, but I'm not wearing it at the moment. It makes you thinner, right? So that, I think, kind of reflects well on how do I see the world as well. So trying to explain a bit why I think this whole transition towards quality engineering works. There was a lot of discussion yesterday with Phil about like the psychological safety and all of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of ingrained in the Finnish culture, some part, even though our introverts or our extroverts are those people who look at the other person's shoes, not our own shoes. So that's kind of the setup. What I've been doing for the past 20 years, maybe shortly as a context, I've been working with medical devices, a lot of regulations. I think there's a lot of fintech people around here, so you know quite a lot about governmental or legislation expectations. And then I've been working with Volt, where the kind of definition of quality is that customer needs to love our product. So there's no expectations from any authorities anywhere. It's more of the quality for the customer as well as for us as we are building it in the future. I've been focusing on leading quality and people for the last 7-ish years. And this transition from quality assurance to quality engineering has been the last 3.5 years. Very interesting experience with Volt, which I needed to mention that I'm not working with Volt anymore since a couple of weeks ago. Kind of for the setup, I don't know how familiar you are with Volt. You probably have seen, at least in Prague, there are those people carrying the blue bags. I joined Volt 3.5 years ago. We had 180 engineers back at the days. Now, roughly 2 weeks ago, we were at 900 engineers, growing from 15 development teams into 80 development teams. And I was leading the QA function, quality assistance function in Volt. We were, at biggest, we were 15 people. So we had close to 900 developers and only 15 QA. So that's kind of the basic setup that I'm jumping from. And we do have the Slidos. I didn't know about that, but happy to take a selfie if somebody wants. So this is kind of the setup tester does. The setup, I'm hoping the battery is dropping next. The transition that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years, starting from quality assurance, going towards quality engineering. We have, as mentioned, QA team, which is quality assistance team, who is actually the one who is trying to make this transition happen more efficiently. And I'm hoping that you might get some insight and maybe some ideas out of our experiences on your day-to-day work. And then I'm aiming to provide a couple of practical tools as well, which you can start using regardless of if you're doing assurance assistance or engineering or all of them. I think they will be useful. Let's start with defining what quality means, because if I ask this room, even though everybody's, or what is it, 10 people had the QA title and another 10 had the tester title. I think we are working around quality. If I ask a person what quality means, I'm betting that I'm getting as many answers as there are people, because quality is very difficult to define, and it's always context dependent as well. So it's not the same for medical devices as it is for a food delivery or the last mile delivery challenge. This is one of the best descriptions that I've seen, and I like this the most. And this is kind of the basis for this talk as well. Quality is value to some person who matters. So it's fundamentally the customer who states if we have a quality product or not. It's not me. I am a customer, but the N is a lot larger often. And depending on your kind of risk awareness and your capability to sustain risk, quality products solve the problem and are good enough. So the good enough part is kind of the barrier that you need to be defining for yourself. And I think that has been one of the most interesting discussions I've had with those 80 teams that we've been working for the past 3.5 years. What does quality mean for you? And let's start defining it and then start agreeing that what do we need to do in order to match that quality. There are a lot different opinions on this. Let's define this difference as well. I'm going to do it very simply this time, because this is a complex topic as well. So the very, like, explain it to me as I'm a 5-year-older type of version, is that QA usually refers to a specific role or specific phase in the whole software development life cycle, where there's some person who is kind of the quality assurance. And testing refers to activity that anyone can do. There was a question actually I think during the panel discussion, that can anyone do testing? I would claim yes. None of you knew it when you were 1, I claim. So everybody had to learn it. Anyone can learn it as well. Not everybody is going to be a very good tester, but everybody can learn testing. And then quality engineering, then again, to me, it's an umbrella term which contains everything that you do for your software. It's about engineering, it's about testing, it's about design, it's about data, it's about leading people, it's about training, it's about learning. It's like anything that you need to do to release a quality product, that's quality engineering. It's a bit of a terminology play as well, because assurance, by definition, could mean all of those things as well. But I don't know who has broken the term. And we've had a lot of challenges as well. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I did 3.5 years ago when I named our team Quality Assistance Team, because the abbreviation is the same. And it has taken us many hours to explain that it's not the same. We are not assurance, we are assistance. So what are the fundamental differences? QA people set the expectation for quality when you're doing quality assurance. That's like the practical day-to-day, how it seems. Whereas in quality engineering, both quality and how do we get there is agreed together. So it's the team's job, or it's the, like, however you position yourself. Is it the group? Is it the whole organization? But it's a joint decision, not done by a person who has maybe a bit subjective view, opinionated at least. In assurance, testing is a dedicated role, whereas in engineering, testing is expected from everyone. And everyone meaning exactly everyone in the team. And especially in the ownership part, I think that is the biggest difference. When you have a person or a role owning quality, that takes away from the development team. So when everybody is accountable for quality, when you have ownership of your product and you're accountable for your product, then you are truly owning your quality as well. And I think that those are key things on when you start transitioning or aiming to own your product as a whole. Get that thinking to everybody's head. And that's what we've been doing for the past 3.5 years. Some challenges that we have in assurance. Fundamentally, it's built on silos. So we have PLs thinking of PL things, the product stuff. We have developers thinking about the code, and we have testers thinking about the tests. That's silos. That's always slowing us down. It's knowledge transfer between those silos, it's communication issues, and it's collaboration challenges. And based on psychology research, it doesn't need anything else than, as an example, what Linda did in the beginning, divide us into A and B. A was obviously better because I was there. B was less. So whenever you have us versus them silos, you should be trying to destroy them, to my opinion. If you have quality expected by someone, which is kind of a systemic issue in the whole software development, that it's not expected from everyone. You have developers who are, like their KPIs is measured by the lines of code or the number of PRs that they are doing. It's not really related to a product that they are delivering. So you're kind of focusing into output more than outcome, and that basically kind of destroys the whole stuff from quality point of view, as well as creates bottleneck when one is not concerned at all and the next one is expected to do everything. And bottlenecks are caused as well, like from developers' point of view, especially what we've learned during the past 3.5 years is that developers are missing both knowledge as well as know-how about testing, especially, but quality, because they are not expected to think about quality in many cases. And that basically is forcing or kind of narrowing their scope and making things problematic. And then what you expect from people is oftentimes what you get as well. So if you start defining quality metrics which don't make sense, that's one of my favorite topics as well, that how do you actually measure quality, because like any metric is actually an indicator of quality. It's not saying that this is good or bad as such. So you can get some kind of an idea if you are going in the right direction, but you cannot really explicitly say that based on this data, we have a quality product. That's my opinionated view. But all of these can be solved with quality engineering. So if we get everybody involved, thinking about quality, owning the quality, those challenges are hopefully less, at least. And then for the past 3.5 years, this transition, or when you're situated in a hyper-growth company where you are having, I think we had average age of a developer in the company was somewhere around 11 months when I joined. So the growth was amazingly fast, as well as probably everybody knows that if you're still kind of onboarding, if you've been in the company less than a year, you most likely are not the most efficient that you can be. It will probably take at least 6 months to be actually understanding what is our scope and then what are our stakeholders and how do we work on this problem area. So moving this whole thing towards engineering is what we've been doing for the past 3.5 years, and then some things I'll try to highlight of what we've been doing. Hopefully there's something that you can utilize as well, and then the tools are in the end. So in theory, if you take the assistance part away, you can get from assurance to engineering, sure, but it will take a lot longer, it will cause a lot more iterations, and it will be a lot more painful. As I see it, this kind of transition is kind of reflected in schools, as an example. You have people who want to learn something, and then you have teachers who are providing them meaningful feedback to be able to learn faster, guide them in the right direction. Andres Eriksson has written an excellent book of the making of an expert. The fundamental idea of that book is it takes roughly 10,000 hours to be very good at something. 10,000 hours itself doesn't cut it, so it's not enough if you keep banging your head on the wall for 10,000 hours, do the same thing, you're not really learning. But if you're doing the learning in a deliberate way, you have somebody to provide you feedback, point the challenges that you're having, figure out together that how can we improve, then you can actually get into the very good state very much faster, and it's in practice possible as well. So that's why at least I'm very opinionated towards having somebody to help the organization to do this transfer. You can obviously not do it as well and then pay the consequences. And what our assistance team has been doing. Expectation of quality varies, as mentioned. We've been trying to approach quality as I think it should always be approached. Like what does quality mean for a team, and what are the challenges that you're facing on your day-to-day life? So how do you improve against your expectations? So you need to be going down in the scope, and you need to understand the product that is being built, because that's essentially the only thing that matters to the customer, delivering a high-quality product. We try to support teams with high sense of ownership. So kind of building the teams based on a clear ownership area, service or part of the product that they're owning, from idea all the way to production. So they are owning a product as well as they are accountable because they are operating it as well. That is a great setup to start building ownership to the team, because there's nobody else who can take the ownership. It's up to you to figure out what the customer needs, build what they need, as well as see that was our guess correct when the stuff is in production. So this is something we can help the product or the people with. We engage the developers to think more about the product. We take the POs, get them involved in the testing and the development phase, provide more insight within the team on how things can be built. And identifying gaps is very important. Based on our experience, whenever there is no QA person anyway involved in the team is very eager to say that we are doing fine, we are releasing. But when a QA person gets in there and starts asking questions, we find a million things that we can improve to be faster, be better quality, like make life easier altogether for the team. So people are getting kind of compliant easily. And then the main idea is to assist, enable, and coach. So like fundamentally, I've been trying to say that do whatever it needs, but on the longer term, the goal should be that we don't have a QA person, or like QA title person in the team. That should be our like future vision like whatever happens within the team, they should be able to do it without silos, without bottlenecks. And QA can be there doing the testing for a while. They might leave, help another team, and the original team still needs to be able to deliver. And the fundamental idea is to improve the capabilities within the team. QA mindset is something that is extremely important that's kind of the first discussion topic we always start with. How do we make sure that everybody is involved in the product? They think about quality. Shifting left has been mentioned several times, doing a lot of that. Trying to be as proactive as possible with the approach, making sure that everybody is thinking about quality all the way through when you're building the product. I think this is extremely important to highlight, and I think we haven't mentioned it today, if I'm correct, that it's always, quality comes always from people. It's not the tech, it's not the lines of code, it's always people. It fundamentally boils down every time to people. And I think this is a good highlight from Penny, that if you focus only on code, you will face the same problems over and over again. But if you focus on or invest in people, culture, skills and mindset, you will be making your life easier in tomorrow and in the future. So as I've been always saying, that as an example, bug is an opportunity to learn. It's like no blame culture. Let's make sure that we learn about the stuff that we've been doing so that we can be better tomorrow. And this is probably one of the kind of easiest sales points I've been using. Like, developers' lives should be about product. It shouldn't matter. Like, ideally, you would be removing lines of code to make the product better, not adding it all the time. Especially when we are growing fast, there's always new people coming in with bad habits, cultural learnings, their previous company's ways of working. And for some reason, for many developers, moving items in a Kanban board or in your sprint board is perfectly fine. Like, I'm happy when I'm able to move it to the done column. But you should be actually thinking about what is the value, why are we building this, who are we building this for, and how am I going to make sure that it works for the customer that is using this. And that has been one of the big things, that especially those people coming in, like, spreading that culture is easier when you have already people. Like, that was one thing that Jan was talking about, have those quality champions within those teams, those who have already lived to the culture. They are able to understand that we are building a product, and that enables the culture to spread as well, but it's still a hell of a lot of work to get those new people into the correct mindset, and I'm thinking about the product as well as quality. And this is maybe the simple highlight. There's no QA doing testing. There's design people, there's data, there's leads, product, team, there are developers. Like, everybody involved in the team should be doing testing, and preferably all the time, not in a stage or a phase of the process, but thinking about it all the time. I think Jan mentioned it as well, that cheapest bug is the one that you did not build at all. So right on the last line of your specification, no bugs allowed. That fixes everything. This is my take on partly on what QA people are needed for. And this is reflecting on the past experience. Expand perspective. I mentioned already that when we go into a team, we start identifying challenges where bottlenecks, silos, quality problems. Provide that testing heuristics, provide the insights of your profession to those people who are creating the product so that they can understand the quality better, understand the different perspectives, and preferably, like on the first go, implement a great product, not in a way that we need to iterate over and over again. Have a problem mindset, so search for problems and ask a lot of what-if questions. I think that should be kind of natural for a QA. I think that's, at least based on my experience, something that QAs do very well. And to me, there's no stupid questions. Everything is always advantageous when you build product together. On top of these, I think you should always have an opportunity mindset, the growth mindset that Linda mentioned as well. You want to aim to solve problems and ask those how and when questions as well, not just point problems, but be proactively with the team, fixing and improving the quality of and ways of working of the team. I think these are big opportunities for us in the future, because I'm not seeing anyone else in today's agile development world doing this kind of stuff. And I think there was a mention during the panel discussion as well that the more senior people get, the more of this kind of overhauling, holistic quality things people are starting to do. To me, it doesn't require tens of years of experience. You can start doing it quite freshly. There's a great example in my previous team, one guy who joined Volt in the support, so he was working with the product for a couple of years, and then he transitioned into QA role with no previous software development experience. Within 2.5 years, I think he was one of the best QAs in the team with the assistive mindset. So it's a lot of motivation and wanting and being capable of learning. Couple of tools. Let me check the time because I forgot to put on the timer. 15 minutes roughly yet. Good, I'm on time. So a couple of tools. I'm hoping these might be something that you would be able to take home. Like Jura was asking for something to do on Monday. Here's something you can do on Monday. Let's start with kind of the fundamentals, why we have built those tools. I love this picture. It's not built by me. Janet, Lisa, thanks a lot. Great manifesto. Build on top of preventive, aiming to be preventing instead of detecting. And I think this is one big item on our future QA roles as well. Aim to provide that insight of making sure that we test throughout, we prevent instead of find. We share our understanding. We aim to build the best system. We are not there to find those tricky bugs. We are there to prevent those tricky bugs to be built in the first place. And making sure that the team is actually carrying the responsibility, because they maybe that's a bit unfair. People are lazy, as mentioned today. So they start people to start taking or cutting corners. And I think it's very important for somebody to be there and point that out as well, because that might pay off for a while, but then it might turn into an 11-hour outage later on. This is a cycle which was drawn by fingers a couple of times, and I think we had this on. Please do note that there is no separate test phase on my DevOps cycle. That's on purpose. As mentioned, I think I probably said it at least once or twice, you should be doing testing all the time throughout the cycle. And this CI/CD question, my take on it, based on experience, is that when you set continuous deployment as a goal for a team, that's a great expectation from quality point of view as well. You need to do a lot of stuff well in order to be able to deploy all the time. And that is an excellent question to ask as well. That if we would want to do continuous deployment, what would we need to change? That has been a great driver, because it's a capability. It's not a checkbox in a QA maturity checklist. It's a capability for the team, and I'm betting that quite many developers want to be in an environment where they are continuously deploying, because it highlights automation. It kind of has a technical side to it as well, but it complies to many of the good practices in software development, keeping the batch sizes small, making sure that as we deploy often, if something breaks, the disaster is most likely quite small compared to releasing rarely. And yeah, one term that I think hasn't been mentioned today, shift left, in addition shift down, so the pyramid thinking, what was mentioned as well. So aim to build your automation as low as possible in the testing pyramid. But in addition to these, I think you should be thinking about testing right as well. So what do we do in production? How do we release in a way that we can get the product to our customers in maybe a canary way? Let's give it to 1% of our customers, or use a beta testing group, so we can see that once our customers use it and we have proper monitoring is somewhere in their understanding of how the customer is actually using it, and like get an actual understanding. Whatever you do before deploying is kind of an educated guess. And once you're deployed, then to me at least, the first kind of real test case is actually executed when the customer starts using the system. And that's the area where you can actually learn and build that feedback loop for yourself. These 4 tools are built on top of the testing manifesto. And it highlights the areas that what are we exactly doing, what are the areas that are either improving or moving from responsibilities point of view. Testing parties is the title we invited, because you can, if you have a party, you're always having fun. Testing should be fun. When you're having a party, you can have donuts. Very good incentives to do some testing. From preventive and detective point of view, if you have a testing party, which essentially in a very short description means getting the whole team together before releasing a product. So even if you're working in a continuous deployment mode, you might be getting your build outside of your pipeline before you actually push it to. So you might be using a branch, or I think this is mostly used whenever we are releasing, or Volt is releasing mobile apps, when you have a dedicated cycle. Normally we don't, or I think rarely people do continuous deployment on mobile apps. So get the whole team, preferably even the whole group, which is several teams, together and do a testing session together. The main idea is not to find bugs in this, even though that's what is essentially happening. We are testing at the end, we are finding bugs potentially. If you find a bug, you should always raise the question that why did we find this late? So you're essentially doing the last step before deployment. We are making sure that our product works. If we found something here, we can probably learn and make sure that we don't find similar stuff again at this stage. The even more important stuff is this testing understanding. So we are actually raising the understanding for the whole team or for the whole group, that how does our product work. In many of these sessions, the backend engineers have been like wondering that, oh, this is the UI, I have never seen it. And I'm like, what? But it's a great way to like pair people together, get them talking, get them understanding of what does our product actually do. So the knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer stuff is as I see it, the most important thing on these sessions. We together understand what our product does, how it works at the moment, and then if we are able to go live or not. And I think this is the best way to promote team ownership as well. You get the people talking, you start getting those questions that why does it work like this? And I thought that your API was meant to provide me this kind of information. That maybe indicates on our documentation level as well. But this is something I would recommend everybody doing, at least trying out a couple of times. It might be fun, and if nothing else, get those donuts. It's helpful. Sugar high never hurts. Pair testing is another tool that we've been actively using. very, very, very effective on two measures. Protecting the customer, so basically making sure that the quality is there. But I think the more important item is that we can educate the developer to be better at testing on those sessions. So that's a great way within a team to level up singular developers. And while a singular developer learns more, they pair up with the next developer and they are able to ask those similar questions from the next developer. And it's kind of a snowball effect throughout the team once you get this as a habit. One very easy and low-hanging fruit type of way for a QA to get this session ongoing is to agree with the developer that once they have done something, let's pair up. Tell me what you've done. Tell me how you tested it. Tell me how it's supposed to work. And then you can walk it through together. You can ask a lot of what-if questions. You can teach the developer to think a bit, like expand their thinking. And the next time you have the similar session, those problems will most likely not be there. And from the testing manifesto point of view, it highlights all the preventive actions there are. So we are doing it thoroughly. We are preventing stuff, especially when we look at the longer term. We are raising understanding. We are providing that insight that what can go wrong and how do we prevent that already before going into our integration environment or wherever you test those components together. And it raises the ownership, obviously, as well as the developer is expected to tell a lot about what I've been doing, what I've been thinking, why did I build this way. Third item, this might sound familiar to you. I'm betting everybody's done it. And there's a classic ownership area is here that if a QA person does it, then it's the QA person who does it, and then developer might not think at all about quality. They just get a checklist and they comply that, and that's a quality product. Our approach has been that we often start off, like we have, in those 80 teams, you can imagine that all of them are autonomous, so they can decide however they do stuff, and their parts of the product can be in different stage of maturity or their life cycle. So there are some products that are very new and they have no processes or ways of working at all. And then on those situations, it's often that QA starts building those test plans and together. And with the test plan, I mean a feature specific, not like a project wide, but a feature specific or epic specific. So going into very details that what is this functionality going to do? How are we going to test it? What are the unit tests? What are the integration tests? What are the end-to-end tests? What do we automate? What do we do manually? How do we think about the longer term? That we don't start piling up the higher part of the test pyramid. And once the team starts to get more mature, the ownership of test planning can be moved to developers in a way that QA is reviewing the test plans before the implementation starts. And then eventually they will be very good actually in test planning. And this is one thing to at least back me up on my claim that everybody can learn testing. Pair testing and test planning, people can learn to plan their tests, build the product well, and they can learn to test their product well as well. And the third or fourth tool to use is to start expanding yourself outside of that testing phase of the software development life cycle. So making sure that you aim to identify where we are finding those issues. So if you're finding a bug, you can raise the discussion that why did we find this? Where's the root cause? What caused this bug to be here? And then we can start learning that is it our requirements, which often is the root cause. Is it communication? Is it collaboration? Is it coding skills? Is it the AI tools? It might be anything. But this is very important, and maybe roughly 40% of our work has been around ways of working. That's maybe highlighted on the environment that I've been working in, because all the teams are different. Everybody is entitled to do whatever they want, and that means that their maturity levels are very different, and that's why they kind of need outside help is very much appreciated to get their ways of working more efficient. And how do we level up our QA stuff in the future? A lot of things, I think, this assistive approach either is not kind of ready. And I think there was several mentions, Alex being one, mentioning that you need to be constantly learning to be able to keep up. Remembering that quality software originates from people, it's not the tech. We do whatever is needed, but the longer term vision, as I see it, should be that everybody should be working in a quality engineering type of mode, that there's no specific person doing stuff after somebody, but it would be more of a collaborative project and a process. Constantly improve by following lean principles and remove bottlenecks. Moderntesting.org, I recommend. Alan and Brent are doing a great job, ranting at sometimes, but I think they have a lot of good stuff on those podcasts as well. They have, I think, 7 principles which are highlighting quite a lot these assistive and quality engineering type of working. And I could put my name on all of those principles. I think they are great as a goal and as a thinking, like a point to start thinking about where do we go. Those 2 guys have built their vision on their experiences on several different companies, but highlightedly Microsoft and kind of observing how world revolves around them. Microsoft, I think, was one of the companies who kicked out all the QAs like 10 years ago. And they basically tried to move from assurance to engineering without any support. And nowadays, what I've heard, they are rehiring QA. Realized that they made a mistake. I think we shouldn't limit ourselves on building kind of the official testing frameworks. We could build whatever tools makes our day-to-day life easier. It's most likely related to automation tooling and picking the right ones. It might be even AI-powered soon. Let's see. I haven't yet seen any in action. We've been reviewing quite a lot of them, but we haven't seen any other than Copilot to help our day-to-day work. And I think this, as in strength training as well, you should always aim to get the maximum gains with the least effort. And that should be the longer-term goal for building a quality product as well. You can improve all the time. You're never done. You're never ready. Your complexity grows. Your people change. Regulations change. Customer expectations change. So you need to be updating your ways of working constantly to be able to kind of push out quality product with the least effort you can. I think that was more or less my call to action to you would be to try to get some of these on Monday. Think about it. If you're able to put up a testing party or call your closest developer and get a pair testing session going, I'm 100% sure that it will be useful.
Thank you.